Kagana stood stiffly beside the spaceship, a checklist in hand. Why does your digestive system's opinion matter? Richard paused mid-step, frowning. It's a gut feeling. Something's off with this crew. Her antenna twitched in what he'd come to recognize as irritation. Why does the way your digestive system feels matter? Actually, how does it have an opinion at all? He grinned, more out of habit than amusement. It's not literally my guts. Sometimes you just know deep down when something's wrong. That's what this is. Kagana's tone turned crisp, almost clipped. All inspection procedures have been cleared satisfactorily. Their ship presents no logical reason for further screening. Logical, maybe, Richard shot back, his grin fading into a serious scowl. But I'm telling you, something feels off. Something about this is too perfect. We're missing something. Unconvinced, Richard rapped his knuckles on the hull, his frown deepening. Is this armor plating? Why would a ship like this need armor? Kagana's antenna twitched as she pulled out her scanner. She ran it across the hull, then recalibrated and scanned again. Cleverly hidden, she said, almost to herself. The ship appears standard to most sensors. She turned to Richard, her gaze sharp and intrigued. What are your overlords, your gut bacteria, saying about this? Their intelligence continues to impress me. Richard blinked at her. My what? Your gut bacteria, the true commanders of your instincts. She gestured vaguely at his torso, as though addressing the unseen organisms directly. They've clearly detected something important. I assume you relay their orders with reasonable accuracy? Because they're not real, Kagana. It's just a saying. Humans have strange sayings. She paused, considering. But if your bacteria were real overlords, would you not want me to negotiate terms of coexistence? Surely they would prefer an ally. Richard rubbed his temples. Kagana, my bacteria are not sentient overlords pulling the strings. They're just bacteria. Can we please focus on the ship? Kagana's antenna twitched as she gave the hull another scan. Very well, but I still find the intelligence behind your instincts impressive. Yeah, gut geniuses. Let's move on. Kagana's scanner beeped softly. She frowned, recalibrated, and scanned the hull again. Curious. This alloy is more sophisticated than it appears. Richard perked up. See? Told you something was off. She ignored him, her focus fixed on her readings. This ship is designed to bypass most standard inspections. These panels could easily be reinforced or converted into something more. Richard leaned closer. More like what? She glanced at him, her tone now sharper. More like a warship. And those so-called storage compartments? They're modular. With the right equipment, they could become weapon mounts. Richard swore under his breath. So, an unarmed warship? Perfect for slipping through embargoes, heading straight for a hot zone? Precisely, Kagana said. Her gaze lingered on the hull before flicking back to him. Your instincts were correct, even if they are governed by microbial overlords. Don't start, Richard muttered. We need to call this in. Kagana lowered her scanner and turned to him, antenna twitching thoughtfully. By the way, Richard, what would you like to eat after this? I'm paying. He blinked at her, caught off guard. I don't know. Maybe a sandwich? Thanks, I guess. Kagana inclined her head slightly. It's my pleasure to please your overlords. Richard groaned, running a hand down his face. This is never going to end, is it? Not as long as they remain in command, Kagana replied, her antenna giving a subtle wave and her smile just a bit too big. A week later, they were standing next to another ship. Again, everything seemed just fine except for its origin. It was from a place with a bad reputation. What is your gut telling you about this one? Kagana had been relentless. Richard shrugged. Let's check the hollow compartment between the engine and the hull. He chose something random. Interesting. Hard to reach. Why? Just because? Richard grumbled, reaching and stretching to feel behind the engine. Then he said, surprised, "Here's something." A moment later, he had some contraband in hand. Deactivated nanobots prone to going rogue. "Whoops," he said. Kagana raised an antenna, unimpressed. "There is no hiding from it now. Your overlords are superior." Before Richard could protest, Kagana was already talking into a headset. The crew was arrested by the security team, and the ship was put through a thorough inspection. It turned out that almost every hollow compartment contained contraband. Richard grinned. "See? It wasn't my gut. I was bound to find something." Kagana waved her antenna in rejection. "The illegal items were well hidden. Your gut guided you." "Not this again." "If I were to bribe you with a sandwich, or rather, your overlords?" They continued quarreling as they walked to the cantina, while behind them, the cursing crew was dragged off. Richard was called back to headquarters the next day, summoned with a sense of dread he couldn't shake. He wasn't sure what he'd done wrong, but he had a sinking feeling. As he stepped into the briefing room, he found Kagana waiting, her antenna poised in the air with an almost mischievous gleam in her eye. "Ah, Richard," she said, with feigned innocence. "I trust you've had time to reflect on your recent successes?" He shot her a look. "What's this about?" Before he could make any objections, a stack of papers was slid across the desk. "I filed a suggestion on your behalf," Kagana said, her voice steady but with a flicker of amusement. "Given your unique abilities, I think it only fair that your status as a colony organism be officially recognized. Your perfect symbiosis with your gut bacteria, of course, suggests that you're deserving of a pay rise, an appropriate increase in compensation for your hard work." Richard blinked. "Colony organism? What are you talking about?" "Why, your overlords," Kagana continued, barely able to suppress a smirk. "They're clearly the ones calling the shots, so it seems only logical that any reward should be directed to them. I also included a note suggesting that their payment be handled promptly." Richard's mind raced. "Wait, you filed this? They'll think I'm—" "Not to worry," she interrupted. "HQ is very curious to know what you mean by overlords. It seems they're eager to understand your symbiotic relationship more thoroughly." Richard groaned, rubbing his face. "This is going to be a mess." Kagana's antenna gave a small wave. "You should be honored. Not every human gets such recognition, especially from your overlords." "Stop it," Richard muttered, though the hint of a smile tugged at his lips. "You're insufferable, you know that?" Her antenna twitched again, but this time there was something softer in her expression. "Perhaps," she said, her voice quieting just a touch. "But I do think you're worth the trouble." He looked at her, surprised by the shift. "What do you mean by that?" Kagana's gaze lingered for a moment before she turned her attention back to the papers. "Nothing," she said quickly, her usual playful tone slipping back into place. "Just remember, your overlords better appreciate all the attention I'm giving them." Richard narrowed his eyes. "I'm not the one who needs to be bribed with sandwiches anymore, am I?" She gave him a coy smile. "I'd say the offer still stands. Maybe your overlords would like something more exotic?" As they walked out of the room together, the sense of playfulness lingered between them. And who knows? The way to a man's heart is through his stomach.